Hello, everyone. My name is Alyssa, Vice President of AALD and Third Year Tech.
And my name is Adrian, President of AALD.
On behalf of AALD, we would like to warmly welcome everyone to the Stream Student Panel, which is the second of our inaugural upper year panels this semester. Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that the land on which we are operating is the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we would like to recognize that this is the statement is no more than an acknowledgement, and much work remains to be done to cultivate the reparations and reconciliations with the Indigenous communities.
And as well, this event from AALD kind of strictly speaks to students' past experiences in streams for more specific like requirements, course requirements, portfolio, or application details. Definitely refer to the registrar's recorded info session about those items.
And without further ado, as most of you already know, after completing your second year, you will have the choice for applying to different programs of studies, which are divided into design, technology, history, and comprehensive. And for tonight's schedule, we will begin with a series of presentations from upper years in these 4 streams, followed by a Q&A period with our speakers, and finally a coffee chat period where anyone is free to talk to upper year representatives regarding their stream experience over some coffee and snacks.
But before we begin, we'd like to have Petros come to the stage and give a brief word about Comprehensive Studio and other insights about streams. So please welcome Petros to the stage.
Hello, good evening. So a few questions. How many of you will be applying for the streams this year? Okay. And how many of you, hi, yes. There's seats there? I didn't know that, never noticed them. It's like the balcony. And how many of you attended my, my Zoom presentation on the streams? Okay, not everyone. I think it's been recorded, so you can visit it. You can listen to it. So message number 1, don't stress out, okay? It's fine. Like the entire philosophy of our BA is built on these 3, 4 categories and ways of making and knowing: design, technology, history theory, and what we might call critical studies. And the idea of the streams is that at the end of your second year, after having worked consistently every term in all these different directions, you might have a moment in front of the mirror and reflect as to what you think is best for you, what you think you're really good at, and would like to get in more in depth and do more more work. There is a perception, because the streams are competitive and you apply for them, that there are certain streams that are better than others. That is not the case. If you are able to think and kind of have this moment of self-awareness and say, well, I would like to study 3 things still during my last 2 years at U of T. I would like to do a double major with urban studies and probably also do a minor in film studies and through the lens of design and architecture. Then you should go into the comprehensive stream. That's what the comprehensive stream is about. It's about actually having less requirements in the architecture program and keeping your options open. And likewise, if you want to do architectural or landscape design studios, more intensive than what you've done so far, try to design a house or a housing project or a garden or an urban design or landscape project, then you go into the design stream. And if you have an aptitude for experimenting for robots, for fabrication, computation, then you go to the tech stream. And finally, if you're a very good writer and you like to do a lot of reading and research, archival research, and would like maybe to pursue kind of further studies in that and in maybe even curatorial studies, you go into the history theory stream. So, and you can still do all of that through one of your streams, but I think it's really about somehow finding a pathway for yourself and seeing a pathway in your last 2 years of study within the program of the Daniels faculty. And so that's what it's all about. I think you will find maybe some of this reflected into some of your peers' experience in the different streams. We are making one important change this year, well, next year, which will be available to students in the comprehensive stream and both incoming ones. So students will be in their third year comprehensive stream in 24-25, starting in the fall, and also in their fourth year comprehensive stream. And this is that we're going to offer a new studio, which I think will answer a lot of questions and concerns about everyone within architectural studies really using design as a lens to the liberal arts, to knowing and making and thinking. So everyone will have the opportunity to take a design studio this way. The way we're working on this studio is that it will involve group work more than other studios, but it will also somehow give you a menu of different projects, including smaller scale problems like furniture or wearables, and larger scale problems like urban design and landscape, and also a small building, an addition and an installation, and almost like a menu of, say, 8 different projects and scales, and you and your teammate will choose 2 to work throughout the semester. So, and this in spirit will also be comprehensive, combining different somehow design disciplines and approaches to design. Ideally, having one problem, one project being nested in the other, like a furniture that you might build in a garden or that might exist in a garden, and you design both at both scales. So that's a key piece of the puzzle. I've been really trying to make this happen for the last 3 years, and it's hard to make things happen in our curriculum, but I'm not going to bore you with that, but it's very important. It's happening. We're doing it. It's going to be offered next year. And maybe everyone will want to stay in the comprehensive stream to do the studio. So the streams will be equal after that. At least that's how I see it. So that's one bit of news that I hope will de-stress your process of applying for the streams and getting, a portfolio together and a statement together by the deadlines, as just really trying to figure out what your next 2 years are about and finding a kind of pathway for yourself. So that's what it's all about. And those were the 2 main things I wanted to tell you. There are requirements, there are deadlines and dates. I think it's April 27th to declare your stream preference on Acorn, and then May 8th, and I might be just 1 or 2 days off on this, to submit your supplementary application. So first you say that, okay, I want to apply to all 3 streams, 1, 2, 3, and you declare it on Acorn. And then you have until the beginning of May to submit your supplementary application. There's an online portal, so all of this happens there. And that's going to be the process. Then there are different committees that meet, that look at the different applications, and you are notified of whether you got in or not in the respective streams you applied to. And then you can enroll for the respective courses in your 3rd year. So that's the process. I think that's what I wanted to say. Should we do questions, or maybe this is more your time? And there's questions in the online session as well? Yes, questions, no questions? Okay. So yeah, and I think wait, ALD, is that who you are? Yes. I think ALD can answer all of them. So I'm just gonna go have a donut, and if you have more questions, you can ask me. But I think this is especially about hearing from your peers. So thank you, and good luck with the rest of the term. Right.
Well, thanks for giving us an overview about the streams, Petros. If you guys have any other questions, you can feel free to reach out to him or us as well at the end of the panels. Yeah, without further ado,
We would like to introduce our speakers. From Comprehensive Stream, we have Adam Soriel, who's in his third year. From History, we have Shelby O'Coin, who's a fourth year. We have Kenny Vo, third year in technology. And then we have Selena, who is fourth year in tech. And from Design, we have Josh Helm and Yema in her fourth year. So that's not exactly the order we'll be going in, but we'd like to start off with Selena. So let's give a round of applause for her. Oh, that's not good.
So hi, everyone. My name is Selena, and I'm in my fourth year in the specialist stream of tech. And I'm also a digital fabrication work study student, more specifically with the CNC milling machine. I might have trained some of you guys with the laser cutter. I'm not sure, but yeah. So at the end of second year, I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to do design or tech. I was leaning towards tech a bit more, but I applied to both because I still wanted some time to make a decision and to see whether or not I would get into both. And I ended up getting into both, thankfully, and then I ended up choosing the tech stream. So I'll give just a brief overview of my portfolio that I used to apply to both streams. So in ARC 200, I'm pretty sure that the course might have changed up a bit since then, but what we were doing was we were doing a study on the yellow belt, and our goal was to increase the density within the region by proposing additions to housing units there. And yeah, in second year, what I tried to do in the studio was specifically kind of experiment with my aesthetics, and ended up going with a more colorful and more playful approach to making images. Now, I didn't necessarily choose to continue this throughout the rest of my work, but it was a fun approach, and I'm glad that I did that. ARC 201 is, I'm pretty sure it's still the same. You have a prescribed Cartesian plane, and you choose a word and you create a design based off of that. And yeah, I created a student center, and my word was amalgamate. These are some of the images that I used in my portfolio at the time. And then ARC 280, which has changed this year, but it used to be the skyscrapers, as some of you know. And in ARC 280, I created a sort of vertical farm tower, a very speculative project. And in this project, I started experimenting more with rendering, and especially with model making, because my first year was 2020, so I was online. So really my first brush with model making happened in the second semester of second year when making these towers. So yeah, that was ARC 280 at the time, more diagrams. So why did I choose tech at the end? So I found out at the end of second year, thanks to 280, that I actually really like Grasshopper. I see it very much as a puzzle, and it's just logic at the end of the day, at least to me. So I really was interested in parametric design and how we could use different softwares to approach that. And I come from a more scientific background, especially in high school, from physics and chemistry. So I've always been interested in building design and in building science and environmental design. I wasn't a minor, and I know there are a few other people in tech who end up doing an environmental sciences or environment and energy sciences degree. So that's always an option as well. And I believe that that pairs very nicely with tech. So ultimately, that's why I ended up going into tech. So talking about the tech studios in third year, there are two main studios. You have Tech Studio 1, which the course code is ARC380, and Tech Studio 2, which the course code is ARC381. And these have changed over the years. In my year, the studios that I had to do are different from the third year studios this year, and they might change going into the next year. But the point of this is just to give you an overview of what kind of work you would be looking at doing in tech. So starting with the first studio was ARC380, Tech Studio 3. And the goal of this, well, it was called timber tectonics. And what we were trying to do here is create our own timber tectonic system and end up creating a bigger project out of that. So we started on a micro scale, looking at the individual parts, and then see how the pieces can come together to create a bigger project. This studio was in partners. So I worked with Mira Thomas to create our design and work throughout the semester. We started off with the precedent study, and in this, we used a lot of Grasshopper to figure out how all of the structural joints came together and how they could array throughout the structure. And then, yeah, this is some more diagrams of that. These are some renders from some of my classmates as well for their final project by Cassandra and Oscar in fourth year. So the really nice thing about tech is that we get to experiment with a lot of different fabrication techniques and materials as well. In third year, that was the first time I learned how to use the CNC milling machine and prepare files for that. In order to make the joints for our tectonic structure, we milled MDF, took them apart. And there was a lot of trial and error to figure out how well they would work kinetically. But in the end, it ended up being successful. And working in a group, learning how to work with a group of people is essential when it comes to architecture. In a firm, you're not just going to be working on one project by yourself. You're going to have to communicate with a lot of different people. And studios is a good introduction to that, especially in tech, I feel. And we got to experiment with one thing that I noticed going from second year into third year is that the scale of our models jumped significantly. At one point, we were creating one-to-one chunk size models of our final project. And you can see in one of the images that we had to go all the way to a hardwood store closer to York to buy these giant panels of plywood to create our models. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of trial and error. But at the end of the day, you invest a lot of time into a project you really love. And I think it's worth it. So I'll go briefly over our second tech studio. It was the previous studio was with Nick Hoban, who was the head of the tech stream. And this studio was with Andrew Bacco, who doesn't teach here anymore. But basically the goal of it was an adaptive reuse project to create a cultural center of the malting silos, which is an existing heritage building down by the waterfront. Again, we ended up learning a lot of new technology for this. We experimented with Blender and we got to experiment with a lot of different materials. This is a photo of our first assignment, which was basically we had to simulate a form using Blender, the software. Blender is great. You can use it can be used for a lot of different things. You can create animations, models, and renderings as well. I recommend checking it out if you have the time to. And yeah, we got to experiment, again, a lot of different materials, very large scale projects. And we did a lot of 3D printing for this project as well. So we very much used almost everything that the digital fabrication lab here at Daniels has to offer, which is 3D printing, laser cutting, CNC milling. So you're adding a lot of skills to your repertoire and your resume in that sense. And yeah, and this group project was 3 people. So it was myself, Mira Thomas, and Will Chen, and we're all in 4th year at the moment. Some more photos. Yeah, so other classes that I took in 3rd year was, well, there's ARC383 and ARC382. And then the one that's more studio-like, you can pick ARC384, which is, I'm pretty sure it's like landscape and ecology, if I'm not mistaken, in simulation. And then ARC385, which was it's like physical computing. And the class was led by Maria Yablonina at the time. And basically in this class, it was more what you'd expect, more traditional technology, a lot of working with circuits and learning how to do that. And by learning how to do that, you open a door of like endless possibilities that in the ways you can integrate it into your designs. And again, you're learning more skills, which is something I really like about tech. So what me and my group mates did was we created a modular, interactive, and kinetic ceiling, which sounds kind of complicated, but basically it was a ceiling that would detect your movement underneath it, and it would lift depending on your position under the ceiling. We did a lot of different fabrication techniques for this, and again, we're working at bigger scales here. And this was a really fun project. The nice thing about tech is you get to experiment a lot and try out different things and see what works, see what doesn't, and you get to have a lot of fun with it. So I was lucky to have the opportunity in third year to be asked to join a design build project. It was led by Nick Hoban and Brady Peters and Rahul Sejapal. And basically, you might have seen it. It was a part of the Lumiere Festival last year. And what we were asked to take care of was we were part of the project from fabrication all the way up to its construction on site. If you've seen the robot lab before, we have that big 6-axis KUKA robot arm. That's what we used to fabricate the separate pieces. So I was lucky to be a part of that. And it was a full-scale project, very, very tech stream related. But yeah, all of that experience ended up leading into me becoming a digital fabrication work study, and specifically with these CNC. And yeah, that's just a photo of me using the robot. And then this year, very recently, we completed another project for the festival called the Geodome with a few other work study students. Check it out if you can. It's at Ontario Place. I think it's pretty cool. I'm a little biased, but yeah, you should definitely check it out if you get the chance. But yeah, all that being said, even though you're in streams, you're able to balance it really easy. Like you'll be able to manage putting a work study on the side, having a social life. It's pretty doable. So all of that led up to me going into thesis in my fourth year. So the nice thing about thesis is that in tech, it is very open-ended. You are able to choose whatever subject that you are really passionate about, and you get to explore it for the whole year. Now, thesis is application-based, so just keep that in mind. It ends up being a pretty small class for tech. It was about 16 people this year, and I know the numbers do grow slowly throughout the years. So yeah, thesis would be right for you if there is something very specific that you're thinking of exploring that you really want to take a jab at. And yeah, so like thesis in tech can range from, I have some classmates who are trying to propose a new kind of material for construction from using coconut fibers, and to people creating designs to collect space debris. It can range from anything you want. So my thesis in specific is titled Lessons from the Vernacular, Integrating Levantine Vernacular Architecture for the Sustainable Reconstruction of Beirut. And what I'm trying to do basically is to propose strategies taken from vernacular architecture to be integrated into modern building, because I believe that there is a better way to do what we've been doing environmentally and socially, especially in the case of Lebanon, which is my hometown. So it's very close to me in that way. But yeah, so thesis is split up into two parts. The first semester is very much research and studying the site that you're in, contextualizing it and arguing why it needs to be done. And then the second part is more about, these are just some quick diagrams I pulled. Second part is more about production and design, and that is the phase that we're in right now. The thesis reviews will be in about a month, so if you get the chance to pop in and check them out, I recommend you do so. And yeah, it's really fun. It's a small studio for the full year. Like I said, 16 people. Everyone's doing different projects. And even though everyone's going to be focused on their own work, it ends up being a collaborative environment. You get to learn from each other and you can inspire each other in that sense. And it's very amazing to see all of my peers' works. And at the end of the day, seeing all the hard work and effort that everyone puts into it, it's really worth it. These are some images of my classmates throughout the year and their work and thesis. But yeah, so regardless of what stream you go into, it will be hard work, but at the end of the day, it is worth it because you're putting a lot of love and effort into a project that at the end of the day will go into your portfolio, and it's the culmination of all of your time at Daniels. So yeah, that was my piece on the tech stream in specific. Thank you.
Right. Big thank you to Selena for her presentation. And we'll just jump right away to Adam from Comprehensive Stream.
All right, hello. Here to talk to you guys today about the comprehensive stream. So a little bit about me. I was born in Niagara, Ontario. I'm a third year in comprehensive stream. Right now, I am an intern at MSA Inc., and that's in Niagara Falls. It's a small architecture firm that does residential housing. And this is the house we were doing in the summer, right there. It's going to be on the Niagara Parkway, just past Niagara Falls, about 20-minute drive down the parkway. I'm also a public programs and events assistant, so that's the work study with Daniels. And I'm also the AFSU comprehensive stream rep along with Mazel. And I also volunteer for an organization called Coles. So being in comprehensive stream, I'm able to do a lot and still balance school life all at the same time. So why comp stream? Comp stream, as Petros already talked about, utilizes architecture as a lens to study other fields of knowledge. So I've made a list here of just potential classes that you could take to pair with your degree. And this is just a very basic course selection that I did. But these are just courses you can pair with your comprehensive stream degree. And it's comprehensive stream really is a lot of independence in the way that you're going to approach the rest of your university career. So that is cross-pollinating with other fields of study. And also, yeah, I'll go into that a little bit later, what I was going to say. But here are some architecture specific courses that I've selected that I've done this year that I've really enjoyed. My top pick out of these is going to be Arc 451, taught by Alexander right now. And it's a history and theory of architecture, more pertaining to the Industrial Revolution. Really interesting class, very easy to participate in as long as you pay attention. You're going to be good. Design history of landscape architecture was also extremely interesting. I think there was 2 essays for it and a couple of discussions in class. Very interesting course as well. And I've also put a QR code here for the Daniels course calendar. So that has all the Daniels courses and you can filter it by breadth requirement level. So that is a good resource to use. There's also the public program series, and I'm a little bit biased on this because I do work for the public program, but this is a really good way to kind of examine different fields of architecture and like comprehensive stream itself, seeing how architecture can be used to study different areas of knowledge. So I've compiled a couple here we've had, and tomorrow actually will be our last public program of the year, architecture and the right to housing. It's going to be extremely interesting. So highly recommend that you do go, but it's a good way to get influenced, see what other people are doing in the field and seeing how diverse the study of architecture can be. So the thing I was going to talk about, design. So design in the comprehensive stream, as Petros already touched on, we're going to have a studio now in the comprehensive stream, which is great. And there's going to be a lot of diversity in what you can do and design with that. But also design competitions. They're a great way to further your designs. I've put a couple of resources here. Future Living Labs, actually a U of T student run club, but there's also architecture competitions, architecture on Instagram that post competition debriefs that you can select, do at your own pace, own time. And then portfolio review days. These are really good in ComStream when you're doing competitions and you need to be reviewed by professionals. These are free. They're great. There's a couple of websites that have like calendars and dates for portfolio review days, but there's also schools as well that have them. So you just keep an eye out for those. But yeah, essentially comprehensive stream is a specialist stream, that is for sure, but the independence that comprehensive stream offers allows you to find and specialize in your own niche. And that's what I've found in this stream. It's been really nice to kind of slow down a little bit and find the areas of study that I'm interested in, and then kind of curating my degree to a niche that I'm very interested in. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
All right. Thanks again, Adam, for your presentation. And next up, let's jump to Josh, who's in third year design.
Hello, everybody. My name is Josh. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm a third year student in the design stream, and I'm excited to tell you guys about my time in design, and more specifically, my time in both of the housing studios. So I can probably be summarized by the guy who likes making things and loves being outside, which kind of makes sense why I chose the design stream. I love being in nature and doing art. So why did I choose design stream? My favorite course in second year was ARC 280. I really loved problem solving with Grasshopper, but I really liked the look of the housing and landscape courses, and I wanted to spend less time in software and more time in the workshop. So a quick overview of the studios you'll do in the design stream. There are 4 studios. You get to choose one each semester. There's a housing and landscape each semester. I went with both housings, but a lot of people ask me, why did I choose housing if I love landscape so much? Well, I also love houses, and one of my favorite things to do is just walk around the town and add to my growing collection of cool houses. And I was really interested in the landscape studios, but I knew that the first semester studio with the NAS was very much on the laptop Illustrator based, and I wanted to spend a lot more time making models, so that's what I did. The studios are also a lot more flexible in your third year. So in ARC 2.1, you guys are really kind of restricted by a verb and different abstract concepts like your elements can only be vertical or horizontal. But with the studios in third year, you really have the opportunity to bring in your own passions in it. So I'm kind of bringing in my passions for landscape ecology, forestry into my housing designs. So your studios in design, you have them twice a week, 6 hours, which is a lot more than what you guys have in second year. So your whole semester is kind of built around these studios. So I'll do a quick overview of the Housing 1 studio that I did last semester. I took it with Adrian Pfeiffer, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do that studio because I really wanted to work with him. So the first project of this course is a precedent study. And the first project of every studio you're going to do is going to be a precedent study because you can't really design something until you understand it. This was my precedent house, and you might be saying, this doesn't look like a house, and I didn't think so either. I remember looking at the list of precedents and thinking, this is the one I didn't want to get, and by random choice, it's the one I got. But after working with it all semester, I really came to appreciate the architecture, the mixed use. It's by an indigenous architect in Bolivia, and we got to make a 1:10 scale model. This model was about 5 feet tall and cost me a lot of money. But fortunately for you guys next year, I think there was enough backlash from the studio technologists and workshop people that I think they'll be doing 1:20 scale model instead. But I mean, don't quote me on that. Adrian likes his 1:10 scale models. The second project is a study of Kensington Market, and we had to produce a series of 50 sketches just to kind of understand Kensington before we went and design our house. And what everyone really takes the studio for is to actually design your own house. We get to design a tower in Kensington Market, and I really tried to explore designing through sketch models. And I just wanted to say here that I decided to make all my sketch models with wood, but an important thing to know is your design ideas don't have to be aesthetically pleasing, and I kind of learned that the hard way. I wasted a lot of time and materials doing this, and this semester I've been making a lot more models with just cardboard and foam and trying to test ideas as fast as possible. Through your designs, you're always going to come to times when you realize everything's going wrong and you scrap everything right before the final review. But eventually, after a lot of iterating, you'll find your final design. And then you get to the important day, the final model, your final drawings, and then the final review. This is my final review and my friend over there, Jojo's final review. I just wanted to show that through these projects, you can really take different approaches. For my final review, I pinned up only hand drawings, and that was kind of lack of time management on my part and spending a whole week on my model. But Jojo had a really amazing set of diagrams and models. So I just want to show like you can do projects in different ways. And if you're really interested in doing one thing, you can really push that the way you want to. So last semester was really busy. I did take 3 credits, and I don't necessarily recommend that, but I lived in the workshop for most of the semester, and me and a lot of my friends, we don't get too much sleep, and very often we are sleeping right after studio or sleeping during studio, but it doesn't have to be that way. Most classes we're here after studio playing ping pong. So we do get enough sleep. And it's all about the studio culture that you build with your friends and classmates. Studio doesn't need to be a sleep deprived, stressful activity. You know, making models, it might be expensive and it can be stressful gluing squares for 3 hours on end. But when you're doing it with friends and creating a better environment, it's a lot more fun and easy. It's good to have friends who can help you edit your model photos 1 hour before your project's due, especially if they're not too busy. Don't bother them. And it's always good to have a game plan, right? Like make plans with your friends about how you're going to tackle your projects. Use a pen and paper and plan out your week and how you're going to tackle things. And the most important thing, I think, is to work together. In the housing studios, it's very individual. There's not really group projects. We've done one small group project for our studio that we're doing now, but it's all individual work. But working together is really important, especially even though you have 6 hours of studio class a week, you'll find that you still only get 5 minutes of feedback per class, and it never feels like enough. So working together with your classmates, you know, coming up with designs together really help you, you know, make the best projects that you can. And at the end of the day, it's good to just have fun. Some tomfoolery and shenanigans in the studio doesn't really hurt anybody, and it'll help you have a more productive and fun time. It's also good to have some traditions with your friends, like some post-review Top Gun burgers. Always good to celebrate and have something to look forward to. And I think the most important thing when you're in studio is to have a good work-life balance. This is something I did not have last semester, but I've dropped some courses this semester to kind of do that. So it's good to just get outside of studio and really spend time doing the things that matter, like just having fun with your friends, getting active, you know, just there's more important things in the studio, even though it'll take up most of your time. Another thing I wanted to say is there's many other great opportunities and resources at Daniels outside of the studios. Even though the studios have been a really fun opportunity for me, one of my favorite things I've done was the design build. So I really recommend you guys taking a look at the design build for this summer. I'm sure some of you have already applied, and for your next summer. And then another thing Adam already talked about is the public programming that they have every week. I didn't go to these at all in second year, but I've gone to most of them in third year. And these are the best lectures I have ever attended. And I usually end up taking notes, which says a lot because I don't read or take notes. So those are always fun to do. So it's a summary. Yes, studio can be stressful, tiring. You might want to break some things, but at the same time, when you're working with your friends, you're working hard on projects and creating awesome portfolio pieces. It's a really rewarding experience. And you know, you make great projects and some great memories along the way. So thank you. I didn't talk about the second studio housing, but I'm more than welcome to answer any questions later. Thank you.
Well, fantastic presentation, Joshua. Lots of pictures, friendship, yes. Next we have Kenny from third year tech.
No, yet. All right, so my name is Kenny Vo. I am a third year in tech stream. And a little bit of background. So my personal philosophy in design is that I like to explore multiple modes of expression. So whether it be computation, simulation, rendering, physical modeling, and especially photography. And along with that, my approach to design has always been more of a logical and analytical approach, which lended it towards my design studios typically incorporating Grasshopper and a lot of computational design, which lended it towards texturing, made me gravitate toward texturing. Exploring Studio. So Studio this year is brand new. Both studios this year are brand new. Moving to the first one from last semester, it was working with these smaller robots, similar to the ones you see right outside like the main hall downstairs. It's using these smaller robotic arms. And It's taught by Nicholas and Maria, and I think they're fantastic instructors. And so the first assignment of this class was just to experiment with the robot and to see what moves it could do and familiarize yourself with basically how the robot works. Moving on to that, it's a side note for this is you do kind of need to know how to use Grasshopper for this course, but because both tech studios are collaborative work, technically only one person needs to be really good at Grasshopper and the others kind of just rely on you. But it is definitely help to have some sort of like good intuition of like software in general. And big thing in tech in general is just exploring loads of different software to basically express your ideas. Moving on to my second assignment, or our group's second assignment, we were exploring robot-human choreography. So this was a really, really fun assignment, and it's not necessarily like an architectural assignment, but you could see how like these methods and techniques could be applied to more architectural projects, which later would be explored upon. So the next assignment, we explored, our own group wanted to explore photogrammetry using the robot. And this in particular was technically a difficult project to explore because none of our group members were particularly like knowing anything about photogrammetry, but we got help from Zachary, we got help from instructors, and it was very fun and rewarding, in my opinion, to just learn about all these techniques and just learning about the software in general. And then moving on, we did eventually have a manual to scan any object with the robot. If you do TechStream next year, this is open source. So, and then moving on to the final assignment, expanding upon this more like architectural idea. This is not necessarily architectural, but we wanted to explore like computational design through interacting with a human. So we came up with our own kind of end tool using 3D printing and a lot of trial and error, basically, and to come up with a photogrammetry process that we would basically spray on the human body. And this course in general, it wasn't very architectural, but a lot of the methods and like diagramming really honed in your skills as a thinker and a designer, in my opinion. And then moving on to the next studio, it's changed from focus on robotics to AI. We're both like emerging technologies, right? So this studio is focusing on exploring machine learning from both a top-down perspective using like GPTs and OpenAI, and also using machine learning algorithms to come up with designs. And this is definitely a more architectural course. As you can see here, we were designing some tectonic modules using Grasshopper and Galapagos machine learning algorithms. And in reflection to that, I really did like TechStream so far. And coming on to our final assignment for our second semester, it is more related to housing, which is I'm really interested in. And in general, I do like the collaborative nature. And sometimes I do wish it was individual because I want to like basically have my own idea and project, but it does teach you how to like really kind of communicate with your partners and establish like a middle ground of what you want, which is really helps you like in industry. Along with that, it does teach you a lot about like software and exploring just a million different ways to communicate ideas, which in TechStream is really, really important. Presentation was basically half the course, coming up with different ways to illustrate how you came up with a process, such as using Blender, using V-Ray, and so on. And on the side, this collaborative nature did allow us to have more time on this to explore just basically our own lives. So I am in work study in IT, and you will see me in the printers every Monday and Thursday, as well as I'm the photographer for AFSU, and sometimes I also do workshops for AALD for 280. And as well, along with that, I do like using photography as a means to express myself, and I do that every so often just to like really capture the moment. And yeah, that's basically it. If you have any questions, you can follow me on Instagram, and I do have a lot more work in detail, especially my side projects.
Voted yourself too. Okay. Next up, we have Shelby from History and Theory.
How do you present this? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think so. Okay. So I'm Shelby. I'm in the history and theory stream, obviously. I'm in 4th year. I'm also the ABSU history rep, so there you go. And I'm currently doing a thesis, and I'm also graduating. So why I chose history and theory. I always was more into writing and projects that were more research-based since high school, so I knew that I tended to favor writing-heavy courses, and that was especially reiterated during 1st and 2nd years, as I tend to be more engaged with the history courses and the written projects rather than design ones, even though I still liked the design. Because of this and what I knew about myself regarding my preferences and strengths, I decided to apply to the stream and then actually accept and pursue it. I'd also applied to the tech stream, so it was between these two options, and I'm pretty happy with how my choice turned out in the end. So this is part of my research thesis. It's very important. And then, so some pros and cons, we'll start here. So the first is pretty subjective because I enjoy it, but history, I mean, it's not for everyone, but for me, it's pretty fun to learn. And of course, there's lots of writing. So if you like it, then that's perfect. But if you don't, that's why it's on the con side. And there's lots of courses to choose from because both the visual studies and architectural studies program, because it kind of like overlaps with everything. And you save money because you just have to do papers basically. So you don't really have to print anything, let alone plot or make models. So this is a good investment. And unless you're in 4th year in thesis, because then we've had to plot, I've had to plot some stuff, but otherwise you're still saving money in the long run. And then at the cons, obviously at the top is lots of writing. So you have to be aware how much you like writing. And then no studios, which means no design work. And so it can be harder to create a portfolio of visual work. So you have to do things on your own outside of class time in order to maintain your skills if that's really important to you. But there is opportunity in 4th year to get into more studio-like courses through the seminar courses. So you have to keep an eye out for those. And there's no actual exclusive course to this stream as it's not feasible with the limited number of students, and the courses also overlap with the subjects of all the other streams. And this can be a con, I guess, if you're not into this, but it was not a con for me. But you do have to be aware that you have to take 1 full credit of 300 level art history courses. And this can be a bit tricky, I guess, if you're not really into art history, but there's lots of options. So you can definitely find something that you enjoy. But you do have to be careful about the 200 level prerequisites because they're kind of confusing. And then, okay, so for my actual stream application, the portfolio piece that I included was my research paper from JAV 200 because it fit the requirements. It was 7 pages and 1 bibliography that I actually did not include as I needed the space to include some work for my tech application within the page limits. In order to determine this, I looked through all my 2nd year courses and the papers that I had written for them to see which ones fit the length requirements, and B, which ones I felt were my strongest. So both personally and also looking at the grades I actually ended up getting. So for the statement as well that was included, I basically just highlighted why I was interested in the history and theory stream and what about it that I found engaging. I had to split my statement between this stream and tech, but I found that was kind of lots of overlap about why I liked each option, especially regarding the process of methodology and research. I did get into both streams, but ultimately I ended up doing history. So for first semester, in third year courses, the only architecture courses I took was Arc 353, Architecture and Media, and 356, Design History of Landscape Architecture, which I personally liked much more for many reasons, but one being that I'm just more interested in landscape architecture. I also took Viz 205, which was basically only because I needed it as a prereq for 300 level Viz courses and it fit into my schedule. And I took Viz 330 Artist Writings, but I was not particularly interested in it at first. But I actually ended up really loving the course, and it was probably my favorite course from that semester. And I definitely learned a lot. I also felt that my writing really improved massively from this course, especially in my non-academic style of writing. I also took 331 Art Criticism, which is a lot of fun if you're into like analysis, critiques, and art. And then in second semester, the only architecture course I had was Environmental History of Landscape Architecture. And then for my art history requirements, I took Greek sculpture and Cultural History of Islamic Spain. Cultural History of Islamic Spain ended up probably being my favorite course from that semester, as it was really fun and I learned a lot. It was also essentially another architecture course, as that was the main focus. They're looking at building, structural styles, construction, and ornament. And then I also took Critical Curatorial Lab and Artist Multiples, which were good as well. Oh, wait. So how do you go back? Oh, thank you. So as you can see, I didn't take a lot of architecture history courses. I did take a lot of Viz courses, but that's just because that was my personal preference. But there are a lot of options if you look on the academic calendar of just architecture history ones. So there's something for everyone. And so here's an example of my final project for Design History of Landscape Architecture. It was focused on the High Line, which is in New York, and it was looking at pedestrian use, both formally designed and informal, and how the site's design influences visitors and their use of the space. So it was kind of interesting because it did end up kind of influencing me on what I was looking at for my thesis work. And then this was my final piece of writing for Artist Writings, which I had edited and expanded upon from an earlier assignment. And this was pretty fun to write, as I'd never written a manifesto before. So it was really cool to try something different, especially when it was on something that I was pretty passionate about. So the writing, its style lended itself really well into this topic. And then this is just an example of part of our final group presentation for the Cultural History of Islamic Spain course. And we were discussing the political diaspora of Islamic art and architecture. And this specific example highlights the spread of domic structures and mosque elements adapted into Mexican cathedrals from the conquistadors. And so for fourth year courses, this is what I've been taking this year. The first two advanced topic seminar courses were Cities and Sign, which is one I was placed in, and then Global South was one I got into, and it's a very studio-like course that had a large final assignment that I did with my friend where we designed and proposed an intervention for an NGO. 456 and 457 are my two thesis courses that build off of one another over the course of the year. So my site is Bronte Creek Provincial Park in Oakville, and I've been developing my project around both the park's present status as well as its past. Viz 328 works well with some of the other courses I took last year. It's kind of a large continuous term project with different stages, which starts with a manifesto. And the last two, FAH 270 and MST 242, are really just my more fun courses from this year. And I would honestly recommend taking medieval mythologies and methodologies, as it was really interesting and it made me regret not getting into that subject earlier. Okay, and then this is an example of part of my final assignment for Cities and Sign, where we had to re-edit a movie into a trailer format based off of a theory from one of the readings that were assigned. So I ended up using Jane Jacobs' Sidewalks reading to do that with the film My Beautiful Laundrette. And this is an example of how basically to get back into a studio course, as this one, ARC 465 was essentially a studio, especially in the last half of the semester. And as I mentioned, my friend and I did this project together while we proposed a new school complex for an NGO in Nepal. And lastly, this is an example from my ongoing thesis project. As I mentioned earlier, it's based in Bronte Creek Provincial Park in Oakville, and I've been looking at the intersection between residential, industrial, and natural zones and their influences on one another. I'm currently in the process of creating a critical guidebook of the site and proposal for future intervention. Overall, I feel that this stream really allows you to be exposed to the more research-based aspects of the other ones. So if you're into more of that stuff, then this could be the option for you. I like to write and dive into research, so I really enjoy this stream and it's kind of perfect for me. Of course, this doesn't fit for everyone, especially if you're more into the designs and hand-on aspects that studios would offer, but I don't regret taking this at all.
Well, thank you, Shelby, for your very insightful presentation. For those of you interested in history, be sure to hit her up. But anyways, on to our last speaker of the night. We have Yema in fourth year design.
Hi, oh wow, there's a lot of people here. Hi, I'm Yema. I'm a fourth year student in the design stream. A bit about me, I grew up in Maryland in Vaughan, and I've always had an affinity towards structural contributions of different cultures, which is how I ended up going to Daniels. So for when I applied to these streams, I leaned more towards design, honestly, because I thought I like studio, I like drawing, I get to do this for work, and I'm doing design then. So pre-stream, a lot of my ideas were a bit out there and imaginative. Even my application portfolio took on a more fantasy-like approach to the presentation of the pieces. There was also a part of me that I think every young designer feels, where I thought I would just feel satisfied if I could put even just a little of myself into my work, and I was searching for a stream that would allow that. What I got out of it, however, is far better than expected. The course is not just the studios, as the definition of that kind of alters, where you go from having like you only do design opportunities in studio to having more open courses, and you do history and design at the same time. So they have really offered pathways to fully express myself in a range of directions. I've been able to design a lot of different projects, ranging from a rehabilitation of a community center near the West Bank, Royal French Garden Grounds, and even to a sliding glass pane wood project, which I'm currently working on. I would say that the work does not only limit to just the act of designing itself. There are also courses in which we explore pop culture and social relationships and how design plays into these dynamics. This branching out also helped me design personal projects. I'm both encouraged to create and fully evolve ideas past simple sketches. So yeah, this is one of the projects I'm working on, about like using the stave hot pools in Norway to create these almost floating pieces of observing the Aurora Borealis that goes through that area of the world. What really helped me decide on the stream was also the previous year's work. I constructed a portfolio. Constructing a portfolio is something that is not really taught, but looking at the work from these other students really guided me as to what I could expect from the work I would turn out. I also encourage others to do this, what I think a lot of design stream students do, which is spend a lot of time looking for precedents. Personally, I look at Kengo Kuma and Piet Udolf. I'm interested in biomimicry, and so I tend to look at architecture and landscape in tandem to produce designs compatible with the current direction of our planet. That's also something I would encourage other people to look into as we try to fight climate change. I also regularly look through these 3 online sites, as there's a lot of cues one can take to improve your own work, and there's no shame in looking at even other people your age and seeing what they're doing to look for directions. I should also mention that Daniels has a very vast library, and I think sometimes it can be forgotten how important physical literature is, as I've come to see plotting and bookmaking as an art in itself. So I kind of split the courses into courses I felt that are necessary for my technical work. So I took the 2 landscape studios, and then I took the designing for the 99%, so that I get a more realistic idea of the budgets and the problems we'll face in the world. And then I took ones that were like my own personal growth that I thought would just be either fun or for my interest in history also, such as the Baroque architecture one. I also want to suggest that everyone applying to design take at least 1 landscaping studio. it really does change your way of thinking, even if you know you're going straight into architecture, as having to work with physical earth and organic material is a whole different ballgame. You really get to understand the roots of your site, both literally and figuratively. So a day in my life, at least for this winter semester, it's not too hectic, but I do spend a lot of my time working outside of class. So just keep that in mind when you apply for like your schedules. I try to personally clump my classes together so that I can have I finish my work in one day and I don't have these awkward in-betweens. I also, as you can see, have time to take other courses that kind of have nothing to do, such as music and astronomy. So studio social life. Like I said, a lot of time is spent doing work outside of class. However, what ends up happening is a lot of bonding with your fellow peers. Because class sizes are smaller, it's much easier to connect with people. I know personally I can be a bit everywhere, but even when I forget my stuff, we know each other so much that my friends will be like, "Oop, that's Yema's because it's pink," and I know that's her color. This closeness also is good to learn how to manage hectic schedules, and whether it's taking notes, printing, or just venting to each other, you kind of start to lean on each other in ways that, of course, you're doing your own work, but it is nice to have another person who is cheering you on. I also there are a lot of work study opportunities, as the other stream presenters have said. I work as a studio steward and I get to participate in implementing changes to how the studio flows and functions, which is a good practice. I also have wonderful coworkers and supervisors in Lily and Gabe, so that helps. You also learn new ways to employ your design skills, as I discovered this year in this job that I really like architectural marketing. The good thing about these work studies is the fact that you are involved in some aspect of your school. So it's not just you have a whole job on the side. It's also you're learning new techniques for your schoolwork also. In terms of social life, balancing social life is probably the hardest simply because of the workload, but there are opportunities to get out of your architectural bubble, but it does take effort because you have to schedule in times to stop. I would also really like to encourage that you go to some of the sort of the smaller events they have. This dog is they had this mental health event where they bring dogs regularly. I think it's every couple of weeks, and this was Winston, one of the dogs I met. So yeah. In terms of getting to know the faculty, I would also really encourage going to faculty events, as it makes meeting your profs and other students a lot easier. And for reviews, personally, I had a problem with anxiety for my reviews, but I think the benefit of this stream is you have so many mock ones that you end up being confident about it and you know how it will run. So by the time you get to the real final one, you're kind of good to go. I would also say take up hobbies outside of working so that you can have a reason to stop working. I personally like taking a photography of miscellaneous items or interesting scenes I found. I also like to spend off hours with friends, and our campus is situated in the middle of a really a lot of easy access sites. So don't forget to walk around and you'll find a lot of inspiration and it'll be really relaxing. So honestly, it can feel like the stream will be just a super concentrated version of classes that you've already had, but there is a lot of diversity in topics you can focus on in the courses taught here. In my opinion, the experience has been less of a streamline of design and more like a streamline of practicing the way I develop my own personal designs and then putting that out into the real world. You get this freedom to design on micro levels all the way up to major examples, but this freedom can be daunting because the choices in classes can put you in work you may feel initially out of place with or peers you seem eons ahead of. But I think this really encourages people to reach out to others. And by the end of each semester, you'll realize that everyone's kind of leveled out. So I think also it is a step up in terms of workload and speed of courses. However, if you can get used to the pacing and really find your personal workflow, you will end up answering the question of what direction your design identity is. And your process and ability to project your ideas will evolve a lot in the 2 years of the stream. And eventually you will find yourself branching out on your own adventures. Yeah. Thank you.
Again, a big thank you to all of our panelists for speaking. As you can tell, like from the presentations, that there's a very broad range of work of design thinking, even amongst the streams. So at this moment, we'd like to invite all the panelists up on stage to answer any questions that you guys might have. So yes, please come up. And if anyone in the audience has questions to ask, we have Augustine with the microphone and he'll pass it over to you. So yeah, any questions, just raise your hand. And then shortly after this, we'll have the coffee chat period as well.
Okay.
What?
We have one more.
Oh, Jaya, do you want to come up as well? Jaya. And also, one more guest joining us is Jaya. She is currently enrolled in Capstone, which is a fourth year sort of studio type of option. Oh. So if you guys are curious or have any questions about Capstone as well, feel free to direct them to Jaya. But anyone have any questions, or we'll begin with our own set of questions, perhaps. Hmm? You want to ask one?
Should we ask?
Yeah, well, we have a question. Huh? Oh.
Thank you, Gus. My question's like pertaining to like all the studios together. I know each like member of the different streams kind of expanded like briefly upon like group work. I remember Kenny talked specifically about like how he wanted to explore like his individual work more, and like despite like doing group work, and with Josh like talking about how a lot of his studio is like individual based. So I just wanted to like ask like, what is the emphasis on group work? And I know Petro said that like for comprehensive stream, there's going to be a lot of group work. As like someone who's like interested in working in groups and liking to like work with other people, I'm just like curious about that. And I also wanted to ask about the capstone project as well, because that's really interesting. Like that just got brought up as well. And like I was wondering like how does that affect other studios if you're like in stream? Like is there like any like sort of conflict? Yeah, that's basically it. Thank you.
I can expand on the tech stream groups. So in first semester studio, it was groups of 4, and then in current studio, second semester, it's groups of 2 to 3. So it's up to each group's own discretion to divide up the work evenly. Sometimes people take leads on coming up with like the idea. Some people do the fabrication, whatever. It's basically either you all do it evenly, but usually it's the person who is like most adept to a certain skill, they do that. And it's obviously up to like talking to your own group mates about that. And regarding like ideation and like individual like you want to like have your own idea, it's all about like compromising with your group mates and like communicating like your own biases and trying to establish a middle ground.
Yeah, as I said, there's like no group work in housing, at least. There's one project, part B of a project, where you work in pairs of 2 for like 2 weeks. I think you guys had to do group work for landscape, right? Or no? Well, right now, the landscape second semester, they're working in partners. So there's more opportunity in the second semester landscape if you want to work in group. But personally, I mean, working in a group is fun. I like building with people. like I said, an important part of our studios is still working with other people. It really helps me to like go over my ideas with my friends and, you know, get recommendations and help from them. But at the end of the day, if you want more design a house by yourself, then, you know, more the housing studios might be more for you.
So I can speak a little bit more about the capstone, and the capstone project is you don't need to be in a specific stream to apply, and it is a multidisciplinary course. So you're actually collaborating with people outside of Daniels and architecture, and essentially you're given this problem, like you and your team collaborate with this specific community partner, and through that community partner, they give you this specific problem statement that you're trying to solve. And so essentially you and your team come up with this intervention or I guess solution to tackle that problem. And unlike thesis, it's like more of a job instead of a personal exploration. And yeah, you don't need to be in a specific stream to apply for capstone.
Right. Any other questions from the audience?
Okay, so when you apply to the streams, say if you're applying to multiple, do you have like the 7 to 10 page limit? Is that including all of the streams in one, or do you get like 7 pages for each?
It was 7 pages for each portfolio, right? Yeah, so you could actually change up your projects and have it appeal more to the more technical projects that you have for your tech stream, and then have more design projects incorporated within your design portfolio. So yeah.
Basically, like completely separate portfolios for each, but you can choose to use the same one. And I think most people didn't want to put it in the work, so they just use the same one.
Hey guys. So we have to write like a letter of intent, right? When we apply to streams. Do you guys have any advice for that?
Just put your heart into it and right away, like put your soul into your writing, and then they'll see you for who you are.
Yeah,
Thank
right.
you.
Like, make sure to write about something that you actually are interested in, not what you think they want to hear. Like, just really go for it. Same with your portfolio. Put in projects that you actually are passionate about, not just like, I did this in class. So, yeah.
Thanks. I needed to hear that.
I think maybe one misconception is that the portfolio is weighted more. But when it comes to the other supplementals and even your grades, as far as I know, from hearing from some of the profs, that the statement is actually quite important. So definitely don't kind of leave it to the last minute, and don't think that portfolio can necessarily supplement for all the other items as well.
Oh, hi. I heard there's a way to like squeeze in more stuff into the 7 pages by like flipping the layout and stuff. I heard that from a 3rd-year student. So how do you do that?
I mean, I guess there's like the misconception of like spreads versus pages, but I'd recommend, like, you guys have to do 8.5 by 11, right? Okay, do 8.5 by 11 and do it horizontal, but don't squeeze too much in. Like, in my opinion, like sometimes having less is more. Like, I'd recommend maybe have like 4 main projects and spread it out between your 10 pages. You don't necessarily need a table of content. That's like a waste of space, in my opinion. Like, just have your projects instead. You don't need to have text explaining this is what the rest of my 10 pages is going to be. Just get into it and show them your projects. But I wouldn't try to squeeze like 100 images on one page. You want to have balance. Is ALD doing portfolio workshops?
Yes,
Cool.
it's coming soon.
Hello, sorry, I missed the official thing, but do you guys know if studio is required for comprehensive streams?
So the way that comprehensive stream works is that you're already enrolled in comprehensive stream. So you would have to apply for design, history, or tech. Yeah, and if you don't, you're already in comp and you don't necessarily need the studio. I don't know how the new studios are going to work. Petros, what he said today is about what everyone knows in terms of that. So, but I know for applying, there is no such thing as an application for comp stream.
For the tech application, would not including your ARC 180 like greatly decrease your chances of getting in?
I personally did not include my 180, and as long as I think like your 280 is like decently good, if you have like all your diagrams and whatever. I also had diagrams for my ARC 201, like concept diagrams. So yeah, I don't think you need 180.
I don't think anyone actually included their 180.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like chicken scratch when you're learning Grasshopper, like you don't need it.
Thank you.
All right, maybe we'll take one last question and then we can get into the chat period. Then maybe we'll end off with this last question. Hopefully we can get an answer from all of you, but what has been kind of the major difference between your experience in third or fourth year, upper years essentially, versus your first and second years at Daniels?
I think for like third and fourth year, it's more, you kind of get to explore what you really are interested in. And first and second year is more comprehensive and you kind of get a more overview of what you really want to explore. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So if you are doing streams, your life essentially is like 80% studio. You do have more room to take electives you want, but since you're doing double studio each week, it is a lot of studio work. And compared to second year, I'd say at least in tech stream, the workload has been more or better than second year, but that comes with just being better at time management as well and collaborating.
I agree that like you can do what you're more interested in. I don't agree with the studio because I don't have studio, but I think there's also like a difference in third and fourth year for me because I mean, I didn't do studio all third year and now I'm doing thesis and it's basically a design thesis because I'm the only history and theory student and the rest of my classmates in my thesis are design students. So it's basically a design thesis. So I have to get used to that again. But there's like just like it's nice because you can do what you like instead of doing like all the mandatory subjects from like first and second year that everyone has to do. So you have more variety that way.
I think for me, it was the, like I said, freedom and responsibility, because I think first and second year, it's a lot of meeting the standards of your prof. And then third and fourth year, it's like meeting your own standards because it's implied that you should be able to like, you're not being your hand held to like, I want site plan sections, all this other stuff. And then there are also a ton of other ways you can represent. And so you get a lot more responsibility, which means a lot more choices, but then it is kind of like if you do mess up, you have to like learn how to pick yourself up very fast and move on.
I'll answer this in like respect to the studios. You have a lot more freedom in third year, which you can say is a good thing, or sometimes it's a bad thing. Because if in your second year studios with 280 and 201, you have really strict ways of how you go about designing. And it makes it really easy for you guys to say, okay, this is how I approach designing each project. And then when you get to your actual design studio, you finish your press in the study, you finish studying, getting ready to design a house, and then you're like, crap, what do I do now? I have no idea how to approach this design because there's basically no rules for you. You just design anything. So it's a lot of freedom, but that freedom can be scary because sometimes you just have no idea where to go, but you get through it.
Speaking on freedom outside of studio and just in the world of academia, when you're in comprehensive stream, you are a lot more free, a lot more time on your hands. And you're very independent in what you choose, which kind of what you're saying too, like in life can be scary as well. But when you get to the upper years, you're a lot more confident in your abilities and your knowledge. And since you've been through the ringer a couple of times, especially with second year, you kind of have a good footing in the program and in university. So there's a lot more to play around with, and it's more just your time to figure out exactly what you like and what you're into and just going for it. So I'd say it's a lot better that way because you're more confident in what you're doing.
We have one more question.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Do you put your strongest project on the first or last page?
First page, but then also end on a strong project.
Okay, so the strategy is good to bad to good.
You know, they should all be your best projects, but you know, you really want to showcase, I'd say, your strongest project first, and that's what I did. And then I put kind of my weakest project, which is probably my 200 in the middle, and then finish it off with my 280s. But I mean, I think everybody approaches it a little different, but you don't want to front load or back load. You know, you don't want people to open your portfolio and be like, what is this? And then just skip it. But
So you group the courses together. So 201 would be like the first few pages and then ARC 200 and then 280, or you can't jump around like with the projects, right?
You can, so first, I think, at least from the people who I know who got into at least on design stream, you also don't have to do like like 7 different projects. You can do like 4 projects and spread them out that way. It's just that it's your best work. And it's just a technical thing of saying like, oh, this is from 280, this is from 201, this is from that. You literally, the most important thing is showcasing your projects well and showing that you have the skill, whatever skill for the streams, and then showing that you have an understanding of, I know what I can design or I can produce, and this is what I want to do. And that's why Adrian said like your written part is like really important, because your portfolio should be in tandem with that.
So in the portfolio itself, what is the ratio of text to images?
I think